But we start the show with the signing last night of Pete Alonso to a 2-year deal, which is essentially a 1-year deal. The only way it becomes a 2-year deal is if Pete Alonso suffers a terrible injury this year, then he doesn't opt out, and then it would average out to $27 million a year. But if he doesn't get hurt, he's going to become a free agent. So if he doesn't get hurt and he does opt out, the contract is for $30 million for 1 year. And I got to tell you what, I've gone back and forth on this. I really have. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if we were just led down a primrose path of outrage and leverage attempts, things like that. But $30 million for Pete Alonso? There's been only one first baseman in the history of the game that made more per year than Pete Alonso is going to make this year. And that's Miguel Cabrera, who's going to the Hall of Fame. His contract, which was an albatross for the last 4 or 5 years of it, averaged $31 million a year. Well, what the Mets did after holding firm, they were going to give him $68 to $70 million for 3 years. That was it. That was the limit. So they looked at him as a $23 million a year player. Then they gave him $30 for this year. Now you can say, well, the Mets won because they only essentially have him for 1 year. That's one way to look at it. The other way is Alonso got $30 million for playing this year. He's the highest paid first baseman in the game. Vladimir Guerrero will make $28.5 this year. Bryce Harper, who signed the contract when he was an outfielder, will make $27.5. Freddie Freeman, $27 million a year. Matt Olson, $22. And Christian Walker, $20. Of all of those, they're all better than Alonso except maybe Walker. Every single one of them is better. Now I know salaries go up, contracts go up as time expires, as time goes on. So, but coming off a bad year, he got a $10 million raise? He made $20.5 million last year. And had a subpar season where all of his metric numbers are going down. And he was able to wrangle a $30 million contract out of the Mets. So in that sense, he wins. Now, the way that he loses is that 2 years ago in 2023, when Billy Epler was the GM of the Mets, he turned down a 7-year, $158 million deal. So that averages out to a little under $23 million a year that he turned down. So last year would have been the first year of that contract. So he made $20.5 last year, and this year he's going to make $30. So he's up to $50.5 million in 2 years. So he has 5 more years to make $108 million. So what he's going to try to do is put together a great year and not falter under the pressure of the last year of a contract and see if there's anybody out there that's going to bite. Now, remember, though, that the coming off season, the top first baseman on the market is going to be Vlad Guerrero Jr. So every team is going to pursue him. So Alonso's best chance is to be the second choice for a team that wants Vlad Guerrero. But Vlad Guerrero is going to be 26 next year when he becomes a free agent. Pete Alonso is going to be 31. So the only way that Pete Alonso ends up looking good is if somewhere in the next 5 years he's able to secure $108 million. Maybe he will. But if you keep signing 1-year deals, the older you get, you're not getting $30 million a year. I think the Mets want above and beyond. And I'm going to tell you what, Met fans, it's on you. I really believe there's no way that David Stearns would have given this guy $30 million for this upcoming season. No way. But the shouting you did at the amazing day at Citi Field, how you cried and moaned about it, he's a homegrown Met, I think that affected them. I really did. Now, one other thing. Hate to tell you this, they valued him only a certain amount. They needed him. Their lineup was kind of like, meh. Who was going to back up? Juan Soto. Mark Vientos? So we're all in on Mark Vientos after one good year. When he didn't even start the season with the team, Brett Beatty won the third base job out of spring training. Vientos showed me a lot last year, but you're ready to say he's the guy that would be backing up Juan Soto in the lineup. Yeah, I don't think that's a big-time lineup. Pete Alonso gives it length. So now you can keep Lindor at the leadoff spot. You got Alonso. You got Alonso backing up Soto. And you could make everything else move down from there. Now, by giving him a $30 million contract, I think the Mets payroll is at like $328. So the Cohen tax is $301. So by giving Pete Alonso this contract, you're $27 million over the tax. And the tax, because you're a multiple offender, a repeat offender, is 110%. So this contract with the Mets' largesse of, okay, we'll give them 1 year. You know what it cost them? The contract's going to cost them $57 million. 30 for what they're paying him, $27 million approximately for the tax penalty. You're paying Pete Alonso that? Now you can say, well, maybe they'll get under the cap or the tax before the season starts. Well, you tell me how they're going to do that. Because even if they're able to move the entirety of Starling Marte's contract, what is that, 18, 19 million? They're still over the tax. So they have the second highest payroll in all of baseball. And can you honestly, Met fans, please call in. I want to talk about this because I'm at a crossroads with this. I'm not quite sure how to view what they did. 1-800-919-3776. Are they the best team in the National League East? Forget about the National League. We know the Dodgers are the best team on paper in the National League. But are they better than the Braves? Are they better than the Braves? Because I'll tell you what, Fangraphs playoff odds came out today. The Dodgers are at 98.2% to make the playoffs. Atlanta is 93%. The Yankees are 71.9%. The Phillies, 71.5%. Arizona, 61.2%. The Texas Rangers, 58.2%. And the Mets, 57.5%. They're not even the best team in their own division. And according to Fangraphs, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the fifth best team in the National League in terms of playoff odds. And that includes making the playoffs as a wild card. So all this talk about fiduciary responsibility. How? Where? Look, by the way, look at your starting rotation. You're depending on Kodai Senga? How many games did he pitch last year? Sean Manaea? No more Luis Severino. Had a real good year for you. Montas? That's not a great starting staff, and it's not a great bullpen. So how is their payroll $327 million? So I guess they're trying to get closer to at least getting 89 to 90 wins, which might assure them of a playoff, and anything could happen, as was proven last year. Because what they did as they were waiting for Pete Alonso to actually make up his mind, what? They added Jesse Winker? They brought him back? What's the major move they made? Harrison Bader goes. He ends up signing with the Twins. Jose Siri can't hit. He's a great defender. You still haven't brought back Iglesias. So getting Soto was great. Absolutely great. I'm sorry, it was. There's no other way to look at it. Don't let anybody spin it any other way. Getting Soto is brilliant. I don't care if in 8 years you're going to regret that contract. The next 8 years, they're going to be golden. That's how good this guy is. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Don't let Yankee fans play the hater. Bottom line is, he's a great hitter, bad fielder, bad base runner. But he is an unbelievable player with a high WAR. So he gives value to the team. They paid top dollar for a top player who's going to the Hall of Fame. But you tell me how a team with pedestrian pitching at best, a pedestrian bullpen at best, is a $328 million team. That's not money well spent. That's not the reputation of David Stearns. So to recap, getting Alonso for essentially 1 year is great because he's 30 years old. Great. But boy, did you pay a high premium for that 1 year. You think he's a $23 million a year player. You gave him $7 million more for 1 year. And he has insurance against a really bad injury because he'll get $27 million next year if he doesn't opt out. That is a lot of money to spend on a team that right now, today, as we enter today, the Mets are 57.5% chance of making the playoffs. That's not money well spent. The Dodgers at 380. And you know what that bought them? A 98.2% chance of making the playoffs. I don't know because they were talking tough. The most they'd give him is 68 to 70 for 3 years. They supposedly offered him at the end with Steve Cohen and Stearns and Boris and Alonso met down in Tampa as Cohen was going down to the owners' meeting. And they didn't come away with a deal, but they had the framework of one. And I think the Mets went up to 3 years, $71 million. And Alonso said no to that. I'll take the 2 years with the $30 million for Pete Alonso. A one-dimensional player. The dimension is a big one. He can hit a lot of home runs. Not a great first baseman. Clogs up the bases. What are we doing? I don't care if it's for 1 year. $30 million for that player is a hell of a lot of money. A hell of a lot of money. Good for the Mets. They get some length in their lineup. But I'm telling you what, they paid Maserati prices for essentially a Nissan. Not a bad car. Nissan's a nice car. Top-level Nissan is really good. Not a Maserati. They're paying Maserati prices for a Nissan. Good deal? I don't know. Oh, you can say, well, it's not. They didn't buy the car. It's a lease. Oh, okay. They're leasing Maserati prices for a Nissan. Or for you older listeners, a Datsun. 1-800-919-3776. All right, let's talk. 1-800-919-3776. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go back to the phones, or let's go to the phones at all. And let's go to Luca in Flushing.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Love you.
Hey, Luca.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Love the show.
Thanks, man.
Love the new time slot for you. I actually called in a few times to you when you guys were still when you're still with Peter and Don, and I said, hey, I don't think the Mets should re-sign this guy. And you know, you came back with, well, where are you going to find a 40 home run a year kind of player? But look, it doesn't matter at this point. I think you're right. I think Don actually made fun of me for saying the Mets are this is kind of similar to the Cespedes situation where the Mets are kind of holding their ground, but you know, they might cave into the Mets wanting to bring back a player they like. And I don't think they cave necessarily, but I don't think, like you said, it's a great situation for them, or it's even a good contract. I mean, it's too much, and we're kind of falling back into just signing players to sign them. I don't think it's a great contract, but at least it's for a year, and that's the way I have to look at it. At least it's just for a year.
That's the positive, Luca, and we thank you for the phone call. That's the positive. It's just for 1 year and you get out of it, unless he gets hurt. Then it's for 2 years. But I think that this is a classic. They could say they don't, and I've said this before. You fall victim to what the fans desire, and you get burned. You'll end up sitting with the fans. The Yankees are living that right now with DJ LeMahieu. Never should have given him a 6-year contract. Now these last 2 years are an absolute albatross. That's why they're actually considering playing him at third base, because they still owe him $15 million this year and $15 million next year. Albatross. Mets didn't want to sign Cespedes. Their fans were clamoring for it. Okay, what'd you get? A wild boar. That's what you got. Never, listen, you have to respect the fans because they're your customer. Never let them build your team. And I'm going to tell you why a lot of fans are phony, too. I'm going to tell you why. If Pete Alonso doesn't hit that home run off of Devin Williams and the Mets get knocked out in that third game against Milwaukee, there wouldn't be that much of a clamor to bring back Pete Alonso. Now, I give Pete Alonso credit. That wasn't the only big hit he had in the postseason. He had 4 home runs in the postseason. He had a really good postseason and a really pedestrian regular season. Really pedestrian regular season. Let's go to Steve in the Jersey Shore. Steve. Guys, I don't have control of my board, so you're going to have to call that up. Hey, Steve.
Hey, what's up, brother? Real quick, I just want to say, as a Mets fan, you did a hell of a call in that London series with Torrens and the double play. I just want you to know, I
thank
give you
man.
flowers.
That means a lot.
Yeah,
I know a lot of Met fans are upset
flowers.
hearing the Yankee announcer calling their game.
Yeah, I couldn't believe our guys weren't there, but man, like for a crazy ending like that, I was telling all my Yankee buddies how you killed it.
Thank you.
But dude, I could honestly, I could listen to you talk baseball all day. You said a lot of valid points with Alonso. We couldn't. Hey, he was an idiot for not signing that a couple of years ago. If he would have got his money, everyone would have been happy. Blah blah. But I think the Mets are more in the driver's seat now with this 2-year contract. Yeah, he has the 1-year option, but dude, we could not afford to lose Pete, especially with we don't really have like you were saying, the lineup is not like as powerful. Like under 60% to even make the playoffs. The pitching's iffy. You got we added Minter. But it's just not as promising as we added Soto, of course, that's amazing, but we could not afford to lose Pete. But now he just needs to hope that he has a good season.
Here's the deal, though, Steve, and we thank you for the call. With the pressure of a contract hanging over him, he had one of his worst years last year. He's got that pressure of a contract hanging again, and he's going to go into a free agent market at 31. And again, let me break it down. The Mets won because it's just a 1-year deal. And Alonso won because he gets $30 million for this season. When no first baseman in baseball gets that kind of money. Not one. The best ones, not one. Vlad Guerrero, $28.5 million. Think about the difference in those two players. Let's go to Mike in the Bronx. Mike.
Michael, I am in the Bronx looking out my window at Walsh Library right now.
Oh, I love it.
I teach in the school right across the street. I've been listening to your show for over a decade, the other show and everything, and I feel like pretty consistently you've been down the middle, even though you're the Yankees guy. This is the most anti-Mets I've ever heard you. It's not a good look for you. You are so negative today. Everybody else is so happy about this deal and so positive. You're the first negative word I've heard about it.
But let's go over it, Mike, because you sound like a reasonable person. You can certainly disagree with me. They have a $328 million payroll, and their chances of making the playoffs are 57.5%. That's not money well spent, Mike. That's not being a hater. That's being reality. That's not me saying their percentage. That's Fangraphs.
Right, but what would you have them do with that money otherwise? Who's the other first baseman out there they should have spent that money on? Or the other player you think they should have spent that money on other than Pete? Because it's just Steve's money. It's not like, it's not. I don't care about the money part unless they could have spent it somewhere else. Where else should they have spent it?
Well, I mean, it's already gone already. I mean, you could have gone a number of ways. You could have signed Bregman to play third base and move Vientos to first. Now, one of the positives of bringing Pete back is that in his second year, Vientos doesn't have to learn a new position in spring training. I think that's great. So, again, there's a lot of positives. And one of the main positive for Met fans is who their owner is. He doesn't give a damn about the tax. He doesn't care about spending $328 million. He doesn't care about having a tax bill of $27 million. It wouldn't have had a tax bill if he didn't bring back Pete Alonso. He doesn't care. Met fans should revel in that after most of their lives having the Wilpons who did care because they had limited resources, especially after the Madoff situation. There are no limited resources with Steve Cohen, but I feel that we went down a path of the theatrics of Steve Cohen saying, I don't like the way this is going. It's the most difficult negotiation, worse than the Soto one, and then he plops $30 million in his lap. So you won by having him sign a 1-year deal, but you lost by overpaying him. I'm sorry if it comes off with me as a troll, but, Mike, what you just said, I've been doing this for 23 years. I try to call it right down the middle. If I don't feel strongly about something, and I'm not saying the Mets made a mistake. I'm not saying they made a mistake because it made their lineup better. What I am saying, if you can't see it this way, I'm sorry if you can't see it this way, it's a massive overpay for 1 year for Pete Alonso. Massive. Met fans, you know what? Most people that do talk shows in this town, I'm sorry to tell you, most of them are Met fans. They're giddy Met fans. So they love the fact that they got what they've been clamoring for. Oh, yay! Steve Cohen, listen, we wanted Alonso back and we got him. That's what you're hearing. I'm calling it right down the middle. Again, most people on the air in this town are Met fans. Don't know why it works out that way, but that's the way it is. And a lot of the writers are Met fans. So they're going to celebrate the fact that the fans got their way. Let's see how it works out for you. Bold strategy, Cotton. 1-800-919-3776. Let's go to Ian in Nassau. What's up, Ian?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Good. What's up, buddy?
Good. Listen, I understand where you're coming from about Pete. Is it an overpay for him? I agree. Yes, it's an overpay, but you can't. I understand you can only look at it as, hey, it's 1 year, 30 million, it's overpaid. There's such a broader picture of what it actually is.
All right, tell me what it is. I'm interested.
Options?
Tell me.
What are other options if we don't sign him? Right? You could say, I listen to you. Okay, Bregman. Well, if you're going to sign Bregman, it's the same deal as if you're overpaying for Pete at $30 million. You're going to hit the tax. We signed Bregman. We're going to hit the overtax as well. We had no other options. Pete was our option, and at the end of the day, it's a 1 year deal. It's a very expensive 1 year deal, but it is only effectively a 1 year deal, and that puts us in a position for the future. Because it's only 1 year, to be able to make moves. We didn't sign him for 3, 4, 5 years for a bunch of money and would have been a crazy overpay for a lot of years. It is a 1 year overpay. I completely agree with that. But at the end of the day, it's about the year, right? We're going to hit the luxury tax no matter what. We've hit it repeatedly. We have the richest owner in baseball. The luxury tax to us wasn't a thing. We're going to pay it repeatedly. But for 1 year, this was the move. In my opinion.
Well, I can't disagree with you, Ian. I think you're absolutely right. Because, as I said, I opened the show saying I'm kind of torn about this deal. The 1 year is a major win for the Mets, and the $30 million is a major win for Alonso. Now, he wanted multiple years. He fired his agent that negotiated a 7-year, $158 deal and hired Scott Boras because he thought there were more riches out there. I think he was dreaming of an Aaron Judge sort of contract. So he didn't get anything close to that, anything close to it. But for 1 year, he's the highest paid first baseman in baseball, second highest paid first baseman in the history of the majors. Massive overpay. But again, it's just for 1 year. But you're not getting out from under it. Because if he leaves after 1 year, you're going to sign Vlad Guerrero, and Vlad Guerrero wants $40 million a year, $50 million a year. Who knows what he's going to get? So you are forever over that luxury tax. Forever. And there was talk about they wanted, Steve Cohen lost so much money the last couple of years. And last year was tough because he's paying half of the salary of Verlander and Scherzer and all that. That comes off the book. And you still have the second highest payroll in all of the game, but you only have a 57.5% chance of making the playoffs according to fan graphs. How did you spend the money well? How? You got Lindor, who's a star. Flat-out star. You've got Alonso at 30. You've got Soto at 46, 47. Where's the big money being paid? How does it get to 328? But it does. You got Edwin Diaz making $20 million a year. But these other things sprinkled here and there, and Nimmo and Winker, somehow it's adding up to 328. Somehow that's not good enough to guarantee them a playoff spot, according to Fangraphs. You can't tell me that's money well spent. You can't. Atlanta has a much lower payroll. Their chance of making the playoffs are 93%, and they lost Max Fried. They lost Max Fried and Charlie Morton. And they're at 93%. At a much lower rate. They didn't even go over any of the taxes. So who built the team better and more efficiently in terms of payroll?